Parity up between the number of people actually in the room and people on stage yet?
Oh, here. This happened last year, too.
Lean up against the wall or
Party on stage.
Yeah. There we go. Hello.
Oh, you're going back to that.
Hello, everyone. I think we actually have more people in the audience than on stage. So,
thank you so much.
My name is Graham Burke. I host a Doctor Who podcast called Reality Bomb and do a couple other things, but we're not here to talk about Doctor Who at all. We're here to talk about this fine book, Outside In. Oh, put it up front correct way would be helpful. Bad product listing, Graham. Outside In Makes It So, which is a collection of essays about Star Trek: Next Generation. And I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves in a minute, but I'm first going to ask Robert Smith, the editor of this book, to explain what Outside In is, and then we will introduce everyone here present.
All right, thank you, Graham. And thank you, Graham, for moderating, because we decided it was a little easier with a moderator, given how many people there were. Okay, so Outside In, as you can see, involves a lot of people. The idea is that you take a TV show, so we started with classic Doctor Who, and then New Doctor Who, and then Original Trek, and now Next Generation, and you take this series of 100 and something episodes, and I guess the wheeze is that it's 100 and something writers writing one piece per story. And so you basically sort of, block the whole landscape with people, and that's kind of the technical weeds. But I think the exciting, different, interesting idea is that you have to say something outrageous, something bizarre, something just totally gonzo, something out from left field. So you really want to kind of like come at it from some unusual angle, because the idea is that, especially with older series, we've kind of all heard the things before, we kind of know which are the good ones, which are the bad ones, and so on. But this says, do something different, and that can be different in format, it can be different in style, it can be radical different opinion, or all three at once, or something else you've never even thought of. So I basically, I see my job as I wind it up and let it go. So I'm like, give me something different, and whatever you do is kind of up to you. So give me your most outrageous, crazy ideas, and then I let all these brilliant, genius people, plus 150 more, come at it with their wildest, craziest ideas. And it is, I take some credit for the original idea, but I hand over so much credit to like the brilliance that I get here, and I'm just really astonished at how much just people bring their A game to the whole thing.
Okay, so we have practically all 178 writers up on the stage right now. So I thought maybe we'll spend the next 20 minutes introducing ourselves now. But if you guys could just very briefly say who you are and tell us what story you covered, and we'll start with the front row.
And maybe what crazy idea.
And what crazy idea you did. So there you go. Okay. Oh, we've got.
Actually, this is appropriate. Michelle was the first person for this book. Yes, you are.
Who's our last? I'm Michelle Hartman. I'm the gaming director here. I wrote about the Royale, and I approached it from the angle of what would be happening now. What kind of media would they have had now? Because obviously we're not throwing a paperback novel into payload when you go into space. How much more information they would have had to work with had it been set correctly in our future and their past.
And so you did this Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yes, that was
Yes,
where
I
they
should
landed.
mention
That
that
was the
bit,
story
yes.
they landed.
Hi, I'm Ian McCann. I'm the editor of the blog The Casual Nexus. I wrote Data's Day from season 4. It's not the best of episodes, and so I kind of wrote the episode as a infomercial for a Data action figure from the 80s, and that just sounds really good.
And you also made the point that you have watched Data's Day now more than any living human.
That would reasonably would.
Yeah.
Groundhog Data's Day.
Warren Fry, I did Reunion. The last one I did for the TOS one was funny. This one, it's about Klingon politics. There's no way to make it funny, except what I did was, since I was reading about a whole bunch of news at the time, I made one column from basically Thomas Friedman of the Federation, so it's all hand-wavy nonsense and pretty liberal, and then the other one is basically Bill O'Reilly from the Klingons. This is some Klingon guy ranting and raving about everything the Friedman guy said, how wrong he is. So it's two competing columns. The unfortunate thing is I had to read Bill O'Reilly's columns 14 times to get it right.
This is how far the contributors will go.
I'm Susan Stanton, and I had Gambit, which I had never seen before and have now seen far too many times. And I wrote a performance review of the Machiavellian plot of the villain and her failures and successes.
Yes, compare it to other fictional characters and their failures and successes.
I'm Steven Japansky from Radio Free Scaro, and I wrote about the episode called Starship Mine. Check that. Where they do a bury and sweep of the Enterprise while everyone else is at a lame dinner party hosted by Commander Hutchinson, who is killed and everyone forgets about. And my essay is about Data's eulogy based on what he has learned about small talk from Commander Hutchinson before his untimely death.
I'm Chip Sutterth. I co-hosted This Week in Time Travel, the podcast, and my episode was Deja Q, and I drew a direct line between the casting, the cameo appearance of LA Law's Corbin Burnson at the end of that episode. I drew a direct line from that to the presence of Doctor Who merchandise in Hot Topics across the world.
Straight lines.
You really did that.
Monster.
I'm Amy Wyndham, and I covered the season 6 episode Timescape, and I wrote a fake research proposal arguing that we can create time travel through the use of human embryonic stem cells.
I'm Bill Evenson. I got the series or season 1 episode Coming of Age, where Wesley fails to get himself into the academy, takes the academy entrance exam, and my essay is about that final question on that exam and how poorly he performed.
Yeah, and so done as an entrance exam.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Graham Burke, and I did yesterday's Enterprise, and I told Robert I will just do a straightforward, down the road, Tom Brokaw style review, and that's what I did, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah. But Graham has compromising photos of me, so he can get away with it.
All right, well, we start left to right with Arnold. And then, yeah, pass it. Yeah, there you go.
I'm Arnold Blumberg. I'm actually the publisher of this and all the outside-in books with ATV Publishing. And publisher's prerogative is being able to say to Robert, I'm doing best of both worlds. Given the fact that Q introduced the Federation to the Borg, I decided to do it from the perspective of Q, talking about what a wonderful thing he's done and how it's led to the assimilation of Picard. So it's all done in Q's voice.
I'm Jennifer Adams Kelly. I am co-author of Red, White, and Who, the story of Doctor Who in America. And I wrote about Data Lore in the form of Lore's diary if Lore was channeling Donald Trump.
Sad!
Losers! Half of me. All right, well, I'm Robert Smith, as you heard, and I did All Good Things, and it takes place in 3 time zones, so I put it in 3 time zones. I put it at the beginning of the book in its proper place, and then at the end. And I did one as kind of, Picard goes on trial, so I did the trial. I did one as a poker game, because they play the poker at the end, where I had to freeze frame so many times to see what the cards were, but I got it. And then I did one just as a sort of, well, it's kind of Picard in the future, and it's, Picard is an old man, kind of, and essentially the failure of Picard as he falls apart, but then has this moment of divine revelation. But looking back at the whole book, because actually what I realized was the opening piece meant I didn't really have to write an introduction. I was like, and my proofreader was like, do you even need one? I was like, no, I don't think I do. This opens the book fine, okay, let's launch in. And then the last piece allowed me to realize that the one issue people skirted around was the character of Picard. Nobody talked about him. And I think they were too afraid. They were like, this guy we can't touch. So they did little bits here and there, but I was like, okay, well, I'm going to dive in and take care of that. So that's editor's prerogative, I guess.
Hi, I'm Jen Fennick, and I'm one of the co-authors of Red, White, and Who. And I did The Perfect Mate, and I did it in the style of Cosmopolitan magazine. So the author, who was Kamala, main character, it's basically how to please your spaceman. And how to win over your starship captain and any other male that is out there. So.
Hi, I'm John O'Connor. I'm one half of the Writer's Barrel podcast, and I had Peak Performance, which I did as excerpts from various manuals after the fact, including Riker's Guide to Management.
Step over chair is interesting place.
Hi, I'm Erica Ensign from Verity and Lazy Doctor Who podcasts. I wrote about We'll Always Have Paris, in which there's a rift opened to an alternate dimension, and I actually did a short piece from the perspective of the people living in the other dimension and the effect that may have had on them.
Hi, I'm Drew Meyer from Who and Company, and when I did the original series, I got the animated episode Eye of the Beholder, and so when the option to choose a story said, I didn't know what the story was about, but they have another one from the next generation called Eye of the Beholder. I'm like, yeah, par for the course, let's do that. It's about suicide.
Yeah, he sent me a very panicked email saying, it's about suicide, how do I make that funny?
And so what I did is, it's an officer's guide to understanding what suicide means to a utopia where people shouldn't be upset enough to kill themselves, and it's kind of how to balance that.
I'm Claire Mosley. I'm the writer of Ensign Sumo's Die, a Tractastic parody. And for this book, I did Ship in a Bottle, and I did it as a propaganda leaflet from People for the Ethical Treatment of Holograms. I approached it as how much can I make fun of PETA without taking off my vegan editor. And as it turns out, he just wanted me to go farther.
That's pretty much always the way with Robert.
I'm Andy Hicks. I am one portion of the Coal Hill AV Club podcast, and my episode was Conspiracy, and I wrote it as a early 90s conspiracy zine, back when conspiracy theories were fun.
So I guess question I have, and I'm going to try and come up with random questions that different people can answer. So put up your hand if this is relevant to you. But those of you who did season 1 stories, so I guess that would be Andy, there's Erica, Stephen, and a couple others. And Jim. Yeah. How was it to do Star Trek Next Generation before it was good? I mean, like what was it? I mean, like, you know, it's widely known that it's not that it had a difficult first season. So
well, Lore Data is actually, Data Lore, sorry, is actually a very good episode, I thought. In the first season, but I watched a couple episodes beforehand, just so I got the flow of it. I'm like, okay, I can see why I kept with it, but it's like, can we just watch the third season now? You know, it was interesting. You could see how they hadn't solidified any idea really of any of the characters, and so Picard would kind of change between episodes, and Crusher would change between episodes. Data was Data, but you know, everybody else was very kind of loosey goosey in how they were coming across. I was just like, this is interesting. Yeah. You know, I don't know what else to say, but it's okay.
Andy?
I mean, you know, the approach I was taking was so weird and different that it didn't necessarily imply that it was a season 1 thing, except that the show was going through so much chaos at the time. Like, they were switching head writers every 5 minutes, and all the writer staff left, and there's this like famous story of, you know, the in memoriam list that they kept in the restroom at Paramount with all the writers that had come and gone, and like the season 1 section is like 2 poster-sized things. And in this case, like, that turnover led to a certain amount of, well, okay, someone else came up with the idea for this, then he left under mysterious circumstances. What's the, you know, Paramount trying to cover up here, essentially? And taking all the stuff that was just sort of incompetency and things changing at the last minute, and Gene Roddenberry having contradictory ideas and saying, no, there was a plan behind all this. So that was fun.
Erica?
I just cheated and wrote from the perspective of an alternate universe. It was easy.
Anything you want. Yeah.
Steven, you got anything on? Or?
I wrote season 6.
Oh, you wrote season 6? You did.
Bill.
Bill, then.
Well, mine's a Wesley story, so it's pretty easy to mock, and I really didn't have any problems with it.
Yeah, actually, I will say that one of the funny things that happens is that the bad stories go very quickly. You're like, oh, I want that one. I can
Really? Was Justice like the first story that went?
Justice was awesome. Justice is done as a tribunal, and they investigate, you know, the sort of the effects on this planet of all this terrible interference they have. And they're basically like, they find him Picard at fault, and they're like, this Picard is terrible. And they interview Wesley, they're like, all charges dropped. Yes. Yeah, no, what I find is, I mean, because you have to say something interesting, different, bizarre, gonzo, whatever, it's very easy to mock the poor ones, right? It's and you know, as Bill says, you can just make fun of them, or you can just go in some different direction. And actually, in this case, the 50th episode is Shades of Grey, so the end of season 2, and that's a clip show from all the previous episodes. And so I had Cameron Dixon, he has one of these minds. He's like, give me every essay from the first 49 and I will do a clip show for this one. And it was like, oh my God, you could pull this off, but no one else could. And so I did drive it slightly towards the first 2 seasons. If anyone had a choice, I said, I could go with the earlier one because I want to get this done. In the end, it took a lot of work, but we got there in the end. And yeah, it's awesome. It was a huge headache, but it was amazing.
Now, I mean, the premise of the book is that that Robert wants the craziest, most out there idea. It was, now, how many of you had a moment where you went, oh crap, how am I going to pull this off? Yeah, okay. Drew, let's start with you. Let's start with Suicide is Painless.
All right, so Eye of the Beholder is an interesting story because there's an A and B plot that are happening simultaneously, but not. And at first, I thought the story was being dismissive of suicide. And I thought, this is kind of fascinating. And as I started doing, I did a lot of research. Also, I watched it many times. And I don't think it's a good episode. You argue if you want, but the more I did research, the more I realized that, and I don't have confirmation on this, I'm pretty sure one of the writers had lost somebody. Because they did this story, and it's very subtle, but there's moments in it that speak to an understanding of this loss and trying to tell you this is how you prevent it. But in a universe that they go about the worst way. I mean, think about it. The Enterprise crew, someone commits suicide and they go to investigate. Counselor Troy makes sense. Worf, an individual who thinks that taking your own life is cowardly, that's not the person you want investigating suicide. So they're taking this procedure in the wrong way. And then of course they fall in love and they shack up and then it's a dream, or maybe it's not, and then it's like, what I try to do is, I always want to write and make it funny. And suicide is not funny, so I try to balance a certain amount of humor in their ineptitude of it with an actual strong message that this is how you have to be aware and watch out for one another. So.
Yeah, I will say it is sensitively done. I'm very impressed with what you pulled off.
Thank you. I would not have submitted if you had not agreed on it.
That's right. And in your final bio, you put a lifeline help sort of information, which the proofreader particularly commented on. He's like, this is really great, actually, to put here.
Jan?
As I said, I did The Perfect Mate, and I knew what I wanted to do. I mean, I pitched it to, I wasn't even pitching it. This is how we're doing it. I'm going to do it as Cosmo. But I had not seen the episode in a while, and when I first thought of it, I thought it was more of a romance, and I thought it was going to be more of a positive thing. It literally was going to be How to Please Your Spaceman, and kind of make it a nice romantic, soft, gentle thing. And as I'm watching it, it was driving me crazy because I was like, I couldn't quite tell what the message was. Is this feminist? Is it not feminist? How am I going to approach this? And I was reading all the different articles and how other people took it. And I finally, I was going crazy because I kept trying to write it. And I finally just sat down and said, let me just put down set kind of just what do